A rare August tornado for Tulsa, Oklahoma, leaving many people injured and lots of damage to the area. Meanwhile, Jay Cutler comes out of retirement to come back to the NFL. Colin Kaepernick still does not have a job. And yes, we're going to talk about the Tata towel because why not? These are just some of the stories that were chattered about all weekend along with the inside of our conversations. And so they made it to today's Daily Recap podcast. Today happens to be August the 7th, 2017. And welcome to the podcast. My name is Jay Cleveland Payne. I'm your host for This Is Conversations Daily Recap Podcast. And of course, on weekends, we have the weekly wrap-up podcast, which we had just last Saturday. Today, on this Monday, we do a grand, large daily recap. We recap 3 days. We do Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, normally slower news days. So we put them all together for one big day on Monday. And you get a chance, as always, to let us know which stories are the best ones to put into the whole podcast. And how do you do that? It's very simple. Since you're already on social media, because everyone's on social media, all you have to do is check out for our drops in today. Check out our feeds, see what we have going on, and interact with the stories as they come by, as they interest you. The ones that interest you the most, make sure you reply, make sure you share, make sure you resend as many as possible. We're on Facebook following This Is the Conversation. We're on Twitter at @TH_conversation. And you can do it old school. You can go to our website, thisistheconversation.com, and check it out, and you will see all the stories as they come down as well. Just react to them there as well, respond there as well. We'll add that to the queue. We add up a score, and we come up with a tally. We put it in the spreadsheet. I'm holding it in my hand right here. And we have 3 days worth of stories, and we'll tell you about some of the top ones that you talked about. And come Saturday, we'll give you the top 10 stories for the full 7 days. You sometimes are very surprised by what stories late in the week can overtake stories that showed up early that had even more exposure. But let's start off with the early stories for what's going to be for Saturday, I should say, the weekly wrap-up podcast. We're going to start with the things coming up from Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Kick things off with last night and Sharknado. The fifth edition of the movie series from Sci-Fi came out, starring Ian Zierling and a whole bunch of cast of thousands of B and C and D list people in the movie, including the biggest pop on social media last night was the appearance of Bret Michaels, Bret with one T, by the way, who apparently while playing guitar was hit by a double-decker bus, which then hit a shark, killing the shark. That's exactly how that apparently happened. I've not actually seen any of the Sharknado movies, but I'm sure they're fairly classy and fairly well made. I'm pretty sure they're not. Let's go to Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler is a quarterback for the NFL. The NFL, National Football League, getting off to a fairly good start so far. Training camps have begun. The first couple of preseason games knocked off this weekend. And we're trying to see who's going to make their turn into the big leagues for an actual job playing on the real roster, as they're trying to whittle down from roster about twice the size of practice squad people and draftees, and trying to figure out who's actually going to play this season. There are critical positions that are hard to fill, and one of those is the quarterback. The Miami Dolphins had an issue where their star quarterback, their planned-on starter, Ryan Tannehill, went down a few days ago and will be out for a few weeks. So they're looking for a solid backup. They didn't have a solid backup, they believed, in their roster already. And they go to a man named Jay Cutler. Why is he relevant? Well, Jay Cutler actually played many years for the Bears. He played for many teams and for many years so far. But his last team he signed with were the Chicago Bears. He left not on the best of terms. He's not exactly a nice guy, if you will. Not exactly the guy the players really love. But he's got a great arm and he's a great player. He retired because he was just kind of tired of the antics that went along with this National Football League. After being beat up so many years, that happens. So they signed him for $10 million for 1 year. So maybe he'll just play 1 year and just kind of get the itch out, make a little extra money because he's available. But what this turns into is a larger discussion going through the NFL. There's a player by the name of Colin Kaepernick, who is a black guy with a really big afro right now, who's been kneeling for the national anthem for the entire season as a way to show solidarity for the Black Lives Matter movement. And so because of that, many people are not liking him on that end. He also is a quarterback who regressed. He was the next thing coming a few seasons ago, and now his play has not worked out so well, because many believe he is what's called a system quarterback, a quarterback that works within a certain system with certain players. And once that system gets figured out, you have to move to a different system, and he cannot quite get himself into a different system or get out of the way of his own play. So some people say he's not good enough to play at a high level for the NFL anymore. He's young and very good shape. Some people say his political antics are really holding him back, even though no one will say that in public. We'll see whether he actually gets a shot on the sidelines or actually starting a job in the next coming weeks. The ride manufacturer that from the ride that caused a fatal malfunction at the Ohio State Fair a few weeks ago said it was due to excessive corrosion. Now, this ride in particular was taken offline to all area fairs and carnivals immediately after the death of the person at the Ohio State Fair a few weeks ago. And they were all brought back to the manufacturer for at least some sort of maintenance and checkup to see what was going on. What we found in this case, and we found in many other cases, is it just wasn't being kept up very well. The owner of the carnival or the team of carnivals that run the state fair was not doing the best job of keeping up with his equipment. And that's something that seems to be something not exactly out of the ordinary for some of these operators who are trying to work on very low margins and very cheaply get things done. So this one, due to severe corrosion, basically not the maintenance not being kept up, caused a malfunction and killed one person and injured about 10 people in that action. All the rides made by this manufacturer, of course, being double-checked, triple-checked, quadruple-checked, make sure they're safe to go back into the wild. When they go back out, they're going back in operation as soon as possible, and this will probably return to a new industry standard in maintenance and checkups. It's really sad it took something like this to bring to light there's an issue with these things, but you've probably seen plenty of your late-night news stories when the carnival or the fair comes to town talking about some dangers of some of these rides. Well, this is a true example of a danger from this here ride. A rare tornado in August hits Tulsa, Oklahoma, and leaving about 30 people injured at this time. I don't have an update on any fatalities, but I have a number around 30 people treated for injuries in Tulsa. It wasn't a very big tornado, but you don't really say that when you talk about tornadoes. It was only EF2. Winds were about 113 to 157 miles per hour. It kicked off shortly after 1 a.m. on Sunday, so people obviously weren't expecting it or had time to plan for it. The biggest thing is the damage and the power that was out. Early morning Sunday, around 12,000 customers were out of power. That's not a large number, but unfortunately, the tornado didn't hit in a very large area. There are about 3 possible tornadoes that were hit in the area that they're testing out today. They have to wait till sunlight and check for things as well. It takes a couple days to call things sometimes a tornado. But they had about 12,000 people out of power early Sunday. Late Sunday, it was about 4,000. It may take a few days for everyone to get back up to speed and all the lines back up together. But the big thing in these things is cleanup. There's always something to be cleaned up. You have to assess the damage of the buildings that survived or barely survived. And sometimes something that you really loved out there will have to be torn down. And that causes issues as well. Of course, not too many lives to deal with that were affected physically. So far, 30 people were injured. We're assuming they all will recover, but if they don't, that's another issue as well. Our thoughts and prayers going out to the people of Tulsa. I know here in Arkansas, we are definitely always on the alert when things tornado-wise pop up because we have plenty of them drive through our state as well. So we're thinking about those out there, and plenty of aid from people here with Tulsa Tides are going out there as well. Justin Gatlin is your new world's fastest man, and that is important because he beat the old world's fastest man who everybody loved, that being Usain Bolt. Usain Bolt was going to retire in a few days. He actually has one last race before he's done, the 4x100 meters, so he has a chance to still be one of the world's fastest men in that race. But the world's fastest man race goes to the person who wins this, or title goes to the person who wins the 100 meters. It's just kind of unofficial because it's a short race, but they just call it because you can basically out sprint the whole thing. Usain actually came in at third place in this race, oddly enough. And the real issue with this is not that Bolt lost the race. We knew he was getting older and eventually he'd have to lose something, even though people were hoping he would take it out on top. The thing was, the villain, Justin Gatlin, is a true awesome villain in the race game. Although, 1, he's American, which is bad enough. 2, He's been suspended multiple times in the past couple of years for using performance-enhancing drugs and maybe some recreational drugs in the process. And 3, he's basically not necessarily a nice guy from what we hear. So he is now the man in the black hat who is riding high on the saddle because he is currently sitting in that title, the unofficial title of world's fastest man, and, of course, taking out the fan favorite, the worldwide fan favorite, Mr. Usain Bolt. We'll see what happens in the 4x100 in a few days, whether he and his team can capture that, and we'll see what happens to Bolt in retirement days. I'm sure he'll find some way to entertain himself and entertain us for quite a few more extra years, even if it's not on the track field every couple of years or so. The Tata towel must be discussed. The Tata towel is not quite a scourge, but it may be an internet weirdness that just may get you up in a tizzy. Now, why are we talking about a towel that holds up your boobs? Well, I do know because I'm the one talking about it. But apparently I don't really know why it's such a big deal for folks on the internet. Since half of the population can't use it, I'm a guy. I don't have the tatas to use it. And half of the population that can use it can't really use it. You must be a C cup or above to actually have the tatas, to hold the tatas. But as all things on in the internet, as you know, people got up in tizzy about the Snuggie, which, you know, the blanket with sleeves and things like that. So people have to get a big deal about the Tata towel. Now, whether it's actually the thing you've been dreaming of to keep your tatas out of the way while you can finish up your business in the bathroom, or whether it's just an unnecessary piece of whatever, you can decide. In fact, you let us know what you think about your whole Tata towel issue, as you like to, any way you want to. I'm going to back away from that. Farmer bro Martin Shkreli was found guilty of 3 out of 8 charges, including security fraud. This is not from working at his last company where he increased the price of an EpiPen to out of range for people to afford an EpiPen. This is from his company before that where he did the same exact thing. He took very low, very good, very useful drugs and priced them out of the market for people to use them, but in the process lined his pockets to, fight some other fraud he did from some other company before. Essentially, he's been basically jumping from company to company, doing these really shady things, making a lot of people money, but in the process, being a jerk and, stealing money. And so 3 of the 8 charges that were dropped on him were levied. He took to social media on Friday after this happened to tell folks he's going to get off anyway. Sentencing's in a few weeks. The saga, of course, continues. Steph Curry steps onto the golf course and does a pretty good job. He doesn't make the cut in his debut in the Web.com tour, but he shoots a 74 on his first day out. He does a good job for a guy who doesn't normally play golf, and he shows that a 2-sport thing is possible even in this day and age. Now, whether he sticks to golf as a side gig to his basketball thing, we shall soon see, but pretty gracious on the field, that is the golf course field, and pretty gracious to the players there. We'll see how he's actually received back from the basketball world in a few days. The Karate Kid is coming back, another sequel, including Ralph Macchio and William Zabka. That would be your real star and your real villain coming back to a YouTube Red series. Now, if you're a subscriber to YouTube Red, that means you get all the extra series that they work on, which is what you're paying for. And so you'll see that in a limited series they've tentatively titled Cobra Kai, I think. So we'll see how that comes out. But they've signed on, so it's going to happen. So if you don't have enough 80s buzz at this point, having Ralph Macchio, who still looks like he's 25, 26, and Johnny is taking him on, doing karate at 50, really? Well, we'll see what they're doing. But you'll get a chance to see the Karate Kid go back at it against Johnny coming soon. A couple things real quick. Former Mexican President Vicente Fox dropped the M-bomb on CNN the other day, essentially saying that originally when Trump was campaigning about building the wall, he gave a quote that said, "I'm not paying for an effing wall." And he brought up that quote when he was talking to Allison Camarada, who gave the most awesome response, face response when it was said. He's basically saying, as I said once, I'm not paying for an effing wall, and I'm pretty sure the new guy isn't paying for it either. It was colossally awesome, and it made total sense. So there you go. Vicente Fox says Mexico is not paying for the effing wall, and I'm one to believe him. We mark the passing of original Steppenwolf keyboardist Goldie Majon. He died at the age of 72 late in the week, and so music fans are basically showing their appearance, showing their love and their appreciation for the passing of that keyboardist. And those are some of the biggest stories we had all weekend long. We had a lot of stories to chat about all weekend long. We're glad that you were part of that, which made for a bit of a longer podcast. So we appreciate you sticking around for that. You can help us keep things going by giving us more great ideas and more great stories to talk about. And you tell us which ones are the ones to talk about. You go to our website, thisistheconversation.com. You go to social media and just follow us, th_conversation, or This Is The Conversation is how you find us on Facebook. Find us there and just when you're in Facebook, by the way, make sure you set it so that you get us in your feed. Set it so that you can see our messages in your feed so you can respond to them as you will. And, of course, share them with some friends, share them with a few enemies, share them with random folks you know on the street. That way we know we're having the best conversations with the most diverse people to conversate with. For more information on my other side projects, go to my main website, jclevelandpayne.net, and thank you for being a part of this here podcast. You can subscribe via iTunes, via Apple Music, which is the same thing, I believe. I'm not an Apple guy. Also, we're on Stitcher, we're on Spreaker, we're on subscribe on Android, Google Play. We are all over the place. If we're someplace that you can't find us, let us know, and we'll try to get there. Otherwise, find us, subscribe, and leave a rating and review so other people can see how well we're doing so they can see us and get more conversations, just like that. Meanwhile, since you are subscribed, right, you'll get another one of these tomorrow morning when we do another recap of the things we talked about all day on this deck. Another daily recap podcast, as promised, is done. A new one coming tomorrow from thisisconversation.com.